The call came on a grim, rainy night, a man's body discovered in the parking lot of Baybridge Chapel, throat viciously slashed. No witnesses. Just a mangled corpse outside the quaint house of worship. An ominous riddle to unravel. Given the precise, surgical nature of the kill, suspicion quickly fell on an obscure local cult called the Haven. They rented space at Baybridge for their unusual brand of services featuring Old Testament fire and brimstone. An offshoot gaining recent popularity among disaffected youth drawn by promises of cleansing pain and strict moral order. Their charismatic leader, Isaiah Black, had a troubled past though. Years ago he headed a militant doomsday sect convicted of planning a terrorist attack, until he turned state's witness for early release. Now he donned a suit and preached reform, but scratched beneath the surface. Evil lingered. The victim was identified as Caleb Mills, a former Haven member who tried leaving the increasingly extreme cult. He sought help extracting his two younger siblings still immersed in their twisted grip. Now Caleb's throat was slashed in the same manner as past enemies of Isaiah Black's old outfit. The scene reeked of Black's handiwork. He disguised his sadism behind scripture, keeping the worst abuses hushed up. But those who challenged his authority faced his full fanatical wrath. Caleb's desire to save his family threatened Black's facade of legitimacy. So he had him gruesomely slaughtered as warning. This pattern of violence wouldn't cease on its own. I needed to rip away the veil of faith shielding Black from consequence and finally expose the monster underneath. But delicate handling was required. Driven by messianic fervor, he would martyr himself before surrendering power. I had to dismantle his cult from the inside. Assuming the identity of a disillusioned drifter, I spun a tale of seeking guidance after years of emptiness and dead-end jobs. The isolated Haven followers craved fresh recruits, especially after Caleb's recent departure. My hollow-eyed melancholy sold the performance. After weeks of careful manipulation to seem a perfect target, I gained access to their secretive inner ranks. Here the full rotten core became exposed. Iron discipline reigned, with public humiliation and abuse for any slight deviation from doctrine. Followers were indoctrinated to reject non-believers as damned, including family members who turned from the path. Worst were the cleansing rituals. On Sundance nights, robed figures gathered by torchlight for Black to oversee macabre rites of pain and sacrifice, supposedly to purge their sins through shared agony. But the anguished screams sounded less transcendent than tortured. Afterwards certain members remained isolated for days, covered in bruises and lacerations. The depths of Black's depravity and control knew no bounds. One girl recently cleansed was Heather, Caleb's shy younger sister. I gently coaxed her away from the group's watchful eyes, building trust through kindness. Eventually Heather confessed the chilling truth. Black personally directed her savage scourging and other sickening abuse to drive out impure urges. Her mutilated back still bore the evidence. Outrage compelled me to act immediately, but caution prevailed. Exposing Black required inflicting critical damage to his cult's facade first. I had to keep chipping away at their secrets until the fetid rot beneath reached daylight. Accessing Haven archives revealed the gruesome truth in full: records of child abuse, corporal punishment, families torn apart, even disappearances of those who tried leaving. A chamber of horrors hidden behind the curtain of faith. I leaked select documents to generate public outrage and trigger official charges against Haven's leadership. Meanwhile, severing their access to bank accounts and communication systems crippled damage control efforts. Like a wounded beast, the cult turned on itself amidst the chaos. Black raged as his empire collapsed. At the climactic Sunday service, he herded followers into a mass suicide pact to escape earthly justice. But having infiltrated the inner sanctum, I could now prevent further loss of life. Black was arrested mid-sermon, his spineless disciples scattering. In prison, Black remains as vengeful and dangerous as ever. But his brutal secrets stand naked now before the world. Caleb and other victims denied justice in life found it in death. Young Heather has a chance at a new life freed from the cult's shackles. Outreach programs now strive to deprogram and reintegrate former members. The Haven's predation thrived in the shadows of forgotten places. But light is the ultimate disinfectant against such evil. Where wolves in sheep's clothing appear, someone must drive them out into the light. However tightly they grasp power in the dark, truth will force it from their hands in time. The children of darkness always fall in the end. Still, gaps remain that no government program can truly fill once a cult collapses. Only patient, compassionate outreach and bonding through shared interests can salve the scars left by such exploitation. Providing purpose without dogma shows promise in guiding those lost down better paths. The hateful tend to find their own ruin regardless. But for those merely misguided, hope persists. Young Heather returned to school, found joy in dance, and discovered talent suppressed under the cult's harsh regimen. Her positive example dissuades others from journeying down that bleak road. Even the most damaged souls can inspire in time. But the system failed Caleb Mills, who died trying to extract his loved ones from the sinister trap he barely escaped. His courageous sacrifice allowed the peril to be exposed, so others might avoid the snare. His memory deserves honor for giving everything to save those he held dear, when law and order faltered. For zealots like Black, the cycle of hatred simply continues behind bars. Their power games reveal a soul in turmoil. True change comes by seeking common ground, not scorched earth. Even the most poisoned souls might find redemption, if they seek it. Though ripples of destruction persist. In the ashes, spaces emerge where new ideas can take root. The future rests with those who tend the gardens of the mind with care, building foundations of understanding strong enough to weather any storm. On this, new communities weave tight-knit bonds able to fill the voids that fear and uncertainty prey upon. Patience and compassion still light the way. And the hateful find ruin in due time. For the rest, hope abides. The weeks after the Haven's downfall brought challenges, but progress. They left in their wake people in need, searching for new anchors in an untethered world. Local churches and non-profits stretched resources to provide shelter, counseling, and support. The road back would be long, but the arms were open. Heather Mills found security in rediscovered family bonds, once the dark shroud of the Haven lifted. Her Aunt Ruth provided a stable home environment and nurturing guidance the girl long craved. Their profound talks revealed inner scars not easily healed, but offered hope. Each lesson of life revealed was a light rekindled in eyes that had seen too much shadow. Others remained more withdrawn and uncertain with their place in the world thrown into question. Julian, a teen runaway rescued from the cult's grip, struggled to trust or open up. His parents were hesitant to welcome back the sullen, tattooed boy now inhabiting their son's room like a stranger. But patience and meeting him where he was emotionally paid rewards. In time, joys of fishing with his dad or gaming with old friends eased the transition. Though darker memories persisted, kept private. Even adults lost and adrift needed special care. Miriam White, a 30-something single mother, fell into the Haven's orbit during vulnerable times after a damaging divorce. Once immersed in the regimented community, she surrendered all independent will and identity. Now directionless again, she grappled with how to reforge broken bonds with family and stand on her own. It was touch and go at first, but regained confidence in time. Her daughter remained the light guiding her forward, no longer dimmed by dogma. The town at large reacted with both sympathy and wariness as former Haven members emerged from the shadows. Their insulated otherness was unsettling, and rumors flew about just what transpired in the cult's isolated compound. But recognizing their humanity and injuries won out over suspicion. Greg, a grocery clerk whose niece got ensnared by the Haven, made a point of learning members' names and extending small kindnesses during their awkward reintegration. Seeing them as human did much to smooth the way. For those whose loved ones never made it out, questions and pain persisted. Parents of a bright, eccentric teen named Lucas who disappeared midway through his Haven indoctrination found only dead ends seeking answers. Black denied knowledge, and the trail went cold after he left their isolated camp. Until a DNA match 2 years later finally brought crushing closure. Now the couple channeled grief into running a missing persons non-profit, determined to shatter the shadows that conceal such evil. Even the faintest clues became leads relentlessly pursued. Isaiah Black remained a figure of notoriety, monitored by authorities for any ripples of activity among remnants of his decimated cult. A few fanatical loyalists still viewed him as a persecuted prophet. But most followers were now dispersed and rudderless without the dominating force he exerted. Black's poisonous charisma manipulated their vulnerabilities and shattered their lives. His name became a cautionary tale. Officials sought to blunt his influence by restricting media access and barring mail. Still, word emerged of him holding makeshift services within prison walls, preaching a doctrine of vengeance. The zealotry in his eyes remained undimmed. Locked away, his reach was limited. But the soul sickness fueling his hunger for control could not be confined. That would burn inside him until the very end. There was always hope for redemption. But few such monsters ever seek it. In the ensuing months, I listened and learned from my submerged experiences. How charismatic figures mask corruption by twisting human ideals to control others. But also that even cruelly manipulated people cling to their humanity, once freed. That moral duty doesn't end with locked doors and barred windows. Light still reaches through the cracks to nourish seedlings of hope. And gentle nourishment makes them flourish, if persevered. My solemn duty goes beyond ending the likes of Black. It is tending to those so wounded, and helping them bloom again. It is standing vigilant so no more light is lost unnecessarily. Because a better world is only built one precious life at a time. Where law falters, deeper justice must pick up the torch until answers are found. I serve in my own way, even if it can never undo the suffering caused. But stopping the next twisted Messiah before his dark crusade gains traction, that alone makes the sacrifices worth it. Too many put dreams of evil domination over human worth. I am the response to that. And always will be. The long process of healing also transforms the healer. My undercover days among the Haven shook loose mental dust that needed airing. We all wear masks over our innermost selves. But submerging totally blurs the lines between disguise and reality. I faced my own shadows then. The faint lure of surrendering self to certainty, shedding all doubt. Of a loveless life finding purpose in devotion to some higher power, real or invented. Glimpses into the void that spawns such monsters as Black. But I turned away from that hollow pursuit back towards the light of hope and connection. Monsters dwell in isolation. Humanity is found in the fragile bonds built through trust and care. However frayed in this broken world, they remain our folding upward. Building them anew makes life worth living. Sometimes when lending a hand to guide someone lost, the one who finds new direction is yourself. Through compassion, our own stains can be cleansed. This lesson keeps me anchored against the storm. Healing, not wounding, remains the surest armor. And the head that bows to wisdom will outlast those crowned in hate. The weeks stretched into months, and gradually the Haven faded into memory, its remnants strewn but no longer coherent. And yet, a final chilling epilogue lay ahead. As Black's appeals ran out, desperation consumed his twisted mind. He engineers a brazen hostage standoff using a smuggled blade, trying to force a new trial. The panicked violence ends only when he is gunned down after slashing a guard's throat in the melee. A mad dog to the end. Those who overcome evil must remain vigilant even after apparent victory. Darkness fights hardest when it knows light is closing in. I should have anticipated one last act in the name of his malign crusade. But his end also closes the book on this grim chapter. A new day dawns, with his victims finding hope again against the odds. Here my duty lies. The havens that manipulate human bonds to abuse and control deserve only ruin. But real community thrives by uplifting those very bonds. Progress comes slowly, but inch by inch, we build the road forward together, leaving fear behind. Where innocence suffers, justice must bring relief. When enough hands join the cause, evil faces its eclipse. But good endures. This fragile truth is enough.